In this video, I've got 5 hidden features of the Panasonic GH5 Mark II that I think are improvements over the original GH5. If you're new here, my name is Caleb and I do freelance video with the Panasonic GH5. And according to my YouTube analytics, 74.2% of you watch my videos but have not hit that subscribe button. If you're part of that 74.2%, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now the GH5 Mark II may have just enough improvement over the original GH5 that it might be worth upgrading. Now, if you are brand new to the Lumix ecosystem, the GH5 Mark II, I personally would recommend you get that over the original GH5. And the GH5 was like packed, well, still is, packed full of cinema camera style settings on a hybrid body. Well, the GH5 Mark II just improves on those settings. So I'm just gonna walk through 5 things that I think are improvements over the original GH5, and then you can decide whether those upgrades might be worth it. So the first hidden feature on the Panasonic GH5 Mark II that we're gonna talk about is the vector scope when you go and check white balance. Now, the original GH5 did not have this feature, and I think this is an improvement where you can actually go and put your vector scope on your white balance screen so that you can see, especially if you're shooting an interview, you can see where your white balance falls on that vector scope. All right, so to get the vector scope up on the screen while you're checking white balance, first thing you're gonna do is go into the menu, click on the gear, and then we're actually gonna go down here to the first page of monitor display video, and we're gonna hit vector scope waveform, and we're gonna put that vector right up there on the screen. And then what we can do is hit the white balance button up on the top, and we can see here now it is on the screen when we go to adjust our white balance. So if you're using the autos, you can see what it looks like there, or some of these presets like the clouds. This one is really blue, and you can see that is a very dramatic change. But you can go in here and you can actually hit custom white balance to put a gray card or white piece of paper up there and set it there. Then you'll be able to see where the colors fall on the vector scope. This is a huge addition to the GH5 Mark II. So this is why it's important to have that vector scope on your white balance screen. So like, let's say, for example, you're doing something like this, or you're shooting an interview in a professional setting, you're gonna wanna be able to see, especially where that flesh line is, where skin tones are on that vector scope. And to be able to do that right from the white balance screen is a major improvement over the original GH5. And again, that just adds to the cinema style settings that they're putting on this camera body right here, which makes it even more like a cinema camera in a little hybrid body. And if you have a color chart, you're gonna be able to see where those colors are spiking on the vector scope to make sure that you can nail your white balance right from the white balance screen. So it's gonna give you a ton of control in a setting like this, or like I said, a professional interview setting that you may be on. The second hidden feature that I think is a major improvement over the original GH5 is the -18 decibel level on your sound control. On the original GH5, you're able to go to -12, but even sometimes that little preamp setting is just a little too much, a little too hot. And so being able to go to -18 is a big improvement over the GH5. Now remember, on the GH5 and the GH5 Mark II, you can set any of these buttons. You can customize those, even this dial right here, you can customize those to get the settings that you want. That's just an easy pop. You know, hit that button and goes to the settings that you want. But to get to the -18 decibel audio control levels, let's go into the menu, and we're actually going to go to the first microphone down here to kind of control our audio and sound record level adjustment. Right now I have it at -12, but I can take it all the way down to -18 and set it there. And that's just going to give you that little bit more control over the audio. So let's set that. Another thing that I just want to point out real quick is that you also have a sound record level limiter. So that might actually be a good thing to turn on too, because that's going to kind of limit those peaks and kind of limit the audio that's going to come through on the GH5 Mark II. So again, in a setting like this, or in an interview setting, you're gonna be able to take that down to -18, which is gonna give you just so much more control in post over your audio. You definitely don't want the mic too hot, especially if somebody's voice fluctuates a lot or if you get too close to the microphone. So I think that minus 18 decibel level audio control is a big improvement over the original GH5. The third feature that I think is an improvement over the original GH5 is the zebra stripe settings, where you're able to have both Zebra 1 and Zebra 2 on the screen at the same time. Now, normally you're gonna have Zebra settings for your overall image, like the peaking in the image. If you're shooting in the natural color profile, usually you keep that around 95, but then you're also gonna wanna keep track of like skin tones, or not skin tones, but skin highlights. And you're gonna wanna see where those are in the image as well. So on the GH5 Mark II, you're able to put both zebra stripes up on the screen at the same time. And again, a setting like this, that's gonna come in very handy because I can see, like, I'm lighting myself with a window right now. So maybe the light might adjust. It's kind of a perfect day today, so the light's not gonna adjust, no clouds or anything. So I wanna be able to see where my face highlights are compared to maybe something in the background. So I'll really be able to dial in those zebra stripes right on the screen, having both of those on at the same time. All right, to get the dual zebras up on the screen, let's go to the menu and we'll go to the gear. And we're actually gonna go to the monitor display video section. And right here you have the zebra pattern. So let's hit that. And then what we can do is just scroll down. You can set them. So if you wanna set, your Zebra 1 or Zebra 2, get the settings that you want in, whether you're shooting natural, vlog, make sure you have those set correctly. And then you can go in here and hit Zebra 1 and 2, hit that, and that's gonna be on the screen when you go to check your exposure. So this is important because you're gonna wanna try to keep as much control over the image in camera as you can. So having both zebra stripes on there to measure your exposure just gives you that much more control. So this is a great feature of the GH5 Mark II, and I think it's an improvement over the original GH5. The fourth feature that I think is an improvement over the GH5 is the focus ring control. Focus by wire lenses have been giving people problems for a long time, and I'm no exception. I think focus by wire lenses sometimes can be great, but when you're trying to pull focus, can really be a hassle. A lot of times I just shoot right past my focal point and have to readjust many times before I actually find the focal point that I need. And they're about to cut a tree down right outside my window, so this might get a little dicey right here. They've started the chainsaw. I really want to finish this video, so if you hear a chainsaw in the background, my apologies, but let's power through this video. So let's set the focus ring control. So we go into menu, and then we're gonna go to the gear right there. And then we're gonna go all the way down to the lens control, lens/others. And right here you have the focus ring control. Now, one of the things you're gonna wanna make sure is that you have your GH5 Mark II on manual focus, not on autofocus. Manual focus. If it's on autofocus, it won't let you set it, but manual focus, it will, because you will be controlling the focus ring. And right here is where we control that. So we have focus ring control. So we have a non-linear option and a linear option, and we can set those different settings in there. So the non-linear is going to be the focus responds according to the rotation speed of the focus ring. Then linear is going to be the rotation angle of the focus ring. So you can go in there and kind of determine where you like your settings when turning that focus ring. And here is where you can set a 360-degree angle or all the way up to a 90-degree angle. And that's just going to be like how much you adjust that focus ring, depending on the distance, the focal distance, and everything like that. So it's really, you play around with those settings and kind of dial in that focus ring setting that you want. Now, this is really important because if you're swapping between lenses, you're going to want to be able to have as much control over that lens focus ring, have as much control as possible. Now, I do not like turning my lens long distances to try to find the focal point. So if I can adjust that just for little short bursts, that helps a lot for me personally when I go to focus. So the focus ring control, I think, is a great improvement over the original GH5. Finally, the fifth hidden feature that I think is an improvement over the original GH5 is the Cinema 4K variable frame rate option. Let's set the Cinema 4K variable frame rate option. Now, first of all, what you're going to want to do is go into the menu, and you're going to actually want to go to the different record qualities, and you're going to want to pick the correct Cinema 4K option, 24 frames per second, or if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, but it's going to be the 420 8-bit at 100 megabits per second. And you can see right here, variable frame rate is available. So let's hit that, pick that, and then what we can do is go to the variable frame rate option, and we can go all the way to 60 frames per second and set that setting right there. So we have in-body slow-mo where we don't have to go and adjust it. Now, this is important because sometimes you just want to get that nice processed slow-mo right in camera where you don't have to make any adjustments or interpret the time or frame rates in your processor. So right in camera, this is going to give you that variable frame rate of 60 frames per second. So it's already processed slow motion that you can incorporate right into your video. Now on the GH5, you do have the 4K version of 60 frames per second in variable frame rate, but on the GH5 Mark II, you have that Cinema 4K, the DCI version of the variable frame rate at 60 frames all the way down to 2 frames per second. Now I know these are pretty simple features, but I really do believe that these are some pretty substantial improvements over the original GH5. And that might be enough for some of you to make that jump to the GH5 Mark II over the original GH5. Now I said this in my review video, and I'll say it again, if you have a GH5 already, you might want to wait for the GH6. You might not need to upgrade to the GH5 Mark II over the GH5. But if you're brand new to the Lumix system, you know what? The GH5 Mark II might be the way to go over the original GH5 because you have these features and just some improvements over the original GH5. Well, that's all I have for this video. Thanks for sticking around watching it. If you have time, it'd be awesome if you stuck around even longer. Watch one of these videos that's popping up on your screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.